Hi guys, Tech here, and I wanted to give you some thoughts on what I was planning for Endless Delve, some things to look out for, and if you would be so kind to consider like, commenting, and subscribing. It really does help me out and help me grow. Anyway, to get started with it, as far as things to look out for, you want to make sure that anything that you are looking to play functions on basically nothing. So it would function as a solo self-found character just fine at early level. The reason why is we can't control what you need or what items we're going to drop. So you want something that is very basic, something that you can self-craft without a bench if you need to. Another thing that you really want to look out for is items that you may think you're going to have access to that you aren't going to have access to. So anything that's prophecy based, you can drop a prophecy, but there's no way to turn it in, and there's no way to get the item from a fated unique, but you don't have a way of actually interacting with the prophecy mechanic. You don't have a way of guaranteeing lab enchants. So while I'm testing this with a lab enchant, it's really because I don't have 2120 Spellslinger, and those are about equivalent, breakpoint is concerned, to a lab enchant. There's also two other options you can get. You can get reduced cooldown recovery boots as well as reduced cooldown recovery belts. I believe on the belts. I know you can get the boot. I'm not 100% sure on the belt. The belt might be specific to betrayal. Kind of keep that in mind, like what are my sources of getting these things? Another thing to consider is that Delve is the best way to get plus level of gem craft, because through fossils, which you're going to get more of than you typically would in any league, is the easiest way to craft those things, and you're going to have a lot more access to them. You will really be able to have quite a bit extra accessibility to fossils that you normally don't have. Fossil crafting is going to be the main way you're going to craft your gear. You won't have access to a crafting bench. You can turn in div cards though. In div cards you'll probably get full sets of. You're going to get a bunch of random ones that you're probably never going to turn in, even though you could. Like, you could turn in a humility. It's just not likely. You don't have the target farming available through Delve that you do through the actual game itself. Planning on playing is what you're seeing behind us, which is a spell-slinging Volitile Dead Detonate Dead character that is also casting Armageddon brand for the tanky stuff, a little more oomph. Now, another thing that you could do if you don't want to mess with the Armageddon brand in those 6 points basically dedicated to Armageddon brand, Volitile Dead and Desecrate into the 6 link instead, and then in the 4 link you could run, defensive, pass 1 damage taken or something. But you could run something that would be a defensive benefit to you. Or you could even put a 4 link Armageddon brand in there and just not spec the points into it, where it's still there, it's still doing extra damage, it's just not something that's as prevalent as it is in this. I wanted the Armageddon brand to be something that I'm not really focused on. I'm just kind of occasionally casting shield charge or run casting with this kind of a build. 100% sure if we're going to have access to trigger. I don't think we are, but I do also know that there's some temple mods that also have some betrayal stuff, like you can get minus mana cost to rings as a temple mod, and you can get that within Delve. Kind of just something to think about is I'm not 100% sure if you're going to get that, so I wouldn't plan your build around having a trigger one either. The other thing about Endless Delve is going from Delve to Delve doesn't cost sulfide. I believe it's just free. So all your sulfite can go towards purchasing the resonators. And he gets new inventory each time you travel. So if you don't like what he's at when you go into Delve, run depending on how deep you are, and then come back and check and see if he has better inventory. That may work better for you. That way you can craft whatever you're trying to craft. Another thing that's very interesting about this kind of a playstyle is it will function on blues. Now that's not optimized, and it's not going to do the best damage in the world on blues, but it will function on blues. Kind of similar to Bladefall Blade Blast. Bladefall Blade Blast will function on blues, whether you play it as a chieftain or whether you play as an assassin. Now, if you're shooting for Demi, Bladefall Blade Blast is not a bad way to go, as both of those ascendancies are normally not that played. I do have guides for the chieftain one, And especially if you go the life tap variant, which has just like slightly lower DPS, you could easily craft better weapons than what are on that one through Endless Delve. That might be something that's worthwhile. Another thing that you can easily do is, especially if you get like cold iron points, or if you get 2 weapon and a cold iron point, you could also go the assassin route and just stack all the crit in the world and basically get no defensive, get pure offensive. And then just build your tree kind of defensively, get a bunch of spell suppression stuff and a bunch of life or energy shield depending on your gear. Because that's the other thing about the assassin version, is you could go either way. You could go CI or you could go life. With Chieftain, you kind of need to go life because the way Chieftain works. Another one, like some of the things that will be popular, is you'll probably see a bunch of Righteous Fire Inquisitors, Gladiators, and Occultists for the pops. You will probably see a ton of Raiders and Champions. So like Toxic Rain Champion will be a thing like it was at the beginning of the league. Raider builds will be a thing like it was at the beginning of the league. Righteous Fire I think got slept on a little bit. People were expecting it to be worse than it actually turned out to be. Turns out Pious Path is really good and very strong. So I think those will be like some of the real popular mainstays. Slayers could also see a high play pool just because the Overleech with Slayer is really good for being in the darkness specifically. Other ones that could kind of surprise you is Necromancer. Minions are pretty good. You don't want to run Specters though. If you're looking at a Specter build, just note that you don't have access really any of the good Specters. So you're probably better off playing like zombies or skeletons or something. More of like a classic one. Or you could even go like Cold Iron Point or Fizz weapons with Carrying Gold. That would also work just fine. The other ones that'll be probably pretty popular is either miners or trappers. Probably trappers right now with saboteurs. The other thing you can do is look at solo self-found hardcore for characters that don't have timeless jewels and don't have trigger ones that are 95, and that will also give you a good idea. Or go and look at solo self-found softcore. Also keep some restrictions in mind, like filter out things that aren't going to be available to you, and just look and see what is being played in those leagues. Trickster might get a little bit more love in this, even though I'm not sure, because I think most people are just going to go Occultist for the pops. I could see there being some like heavy darkness farming Tricksters being built, even though they wouldn't be necessarily for the racing aspect of it, but more for to be able to craft a really good gear with that character. So they might not even be high level. They might be level, 20, 30, something like that, and just going crazy in the darkness. That's a possibility too. That may shift into a meta. The other thing to keep in mind with this is it does overlap, I believe, with Zez's Gauntlet. So if you're planning on playing that, which is a hardcore gauntlet only, I think it's Crangled Gauntlet is the name of the new one. So if you're planning on playing that, I wouldn't be shooting for a Demi on this one, just so you're aware, because there's going to be an overlap. There's also going to be an overlap with Heist and Zez's Gauntlet, I believe, as well. It's Heist or the Invasion. It's one of the two. One of the two also overlaps. So if you're really chasing demis, you basically want a full commit to that specific one. But anyway, I hope this was beneficial. I will post a path of building as well as a dedicated tree. And I have changed a little bit of the format on the path of building. So I used the note section this time instead of making different gem setups, because I did notice that there are some people that were getting confused by the multiple layer of gem setup. So instead I put in notes basically when to get the early stuff and when to like pick up a whole bunch of Spellslingers and put them in the offhand, like the important things. And I kind of left it to your imagination after the initial leveling, because I figure you'll get kind of a feel for it. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'm pretty good about responding to them. But anyway, you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully you are as excited for Endless Delve as I am. Have a great one, guys.